Hi, my name is Lacey Fenton, and I'm going to describe and demonstrate some of the myofascial lines in the body. The first one I'm going to describe is the superficial back line. This line runs from the toes up around the foot to the knees, and then from the back of the knee up the body, around the head to the brow. The function of these lines, the postural one is to have full or help with full extension in the body and to prevent flexion such as the fetal position or from us obviously healing over. The movement function is to help with hyperextension and extension in the body except for the knees and the ankles. Examples of this are putting your body towards the ground without bending your knees, as you can feel the muscles pulling in the back, and bending over this way, as again you can feel the muscles pulling. Next is the superficial front line. This line runs from the toes up the front to the pelvis, then from the pelvis up the front of the body, or anterior of the body, and around to the back of the head. The postural function of this is to provide balance to the superficial back line. Obviously, they counteract each other, making us be able to stand up straight. Provides tensile support from the top to move parts of the skeleton that extend forward of the gravity line, such as the rib cage or the face. The movement function is for flexion of the trunk and hips, extension of the knee, and dorsiflexion of the feet. One of the movements I can demonstrate would be this, as it pulls the front of the body. Next, I'll talk about the lateral line. This one's a little more complex. It starts at 2 points on the foot, one medial, one lateral, then goes to the lateral side of the foot, up the side of the leg, the lateral side of the thigh, up the lateral side of the trunk, but it does a basket weave through the trunk and up behind the shoulder and ends on a point in the head by the ear. This is on both sides of the body. The postural function of this is for balance front and back and left and right, and it stabilizes the trunk and legs to prevent buckling during activity. The movement function is lateral flexion at the trunk, abduction at the hip, and eversion of the foot. An example of this movement is lateral flexion, as it pulls the muscles that are used in this movement. The spiral line is next. This line is a lot more complex, and I'll try to describe it the best I can. It starts on opposing sides of the skull and runs down, crossing to the opposite shoulder. It then runs down the back and loops around, again crossing, at the navel or hip area. It then runs down the anterior lateral side of the thigh and crosses over the shin to the medial side. It then loops under the arches of the foot and comes up the lateral side of the leg, going to the back through the erector spinae myofascia, and runs up the back to begin, or to end, I guess, very close to where it began. The postural function is to balance in all planes. It connects the foot angle to the foot arches, to the pelvic angle. It maintains twists, rotations, and lateral shifts. The movement is to create and mediate oblique spirals and rotations. That's obviously the muscles are all crossing over, and that's how it helps to twist. In eccentric and isometric contractions, it studies the trunk and legs to prevent from rotational collapse. Some movements to describe this would be this, where we're twisting our body and you can feel it pulling all along the side where the muscles we're using are. The back and front functional lines are the last I have to talk about. These lines are kind of unique because they don't normally come into play when we're just in standing posture like we are with the other lines I discussed. These lines run from the arm lines down the front of the body, and then they branch back out into the pelvis. And the same in the back. They start here, run down, and branch out again. Kind of like an X in the front and the back. These lines come into play during activity, where one of the appendicular complexes is being stabilized, counterbalanced, or powered by the contralateral complement. That's kind of hard to describe when we're just standing. Obviously, it counteracts what's happening in the front or the back to help us stay stable and prevent injury. That's all I have. Thank you.